Sairam students, welcome to grade 7 and also to the new academic session. I hope all of you are doing good. Today's class we will begin with a new lesson from your textbook New Voices, and the name of the lesson is The Surprise Party, written by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now this lesson is an abridged version of an excerpt from the book The Hobbit. This book, Hobbit, mentions about a reluctant hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, who sets out to the lonely mountain with a set of 13 dwarfs. And he goes there to reclaim their mountain and the gold within it from the dragon Smaug. What exactly happens over there? For that, you need to read the book The Hobbit. Let me tell you something about the author. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien was born on January 3rd, 1892. He passed away on September 2nd, 1973. He was an English writer, a poet, a philologist, and he was also into academics. He taught literature in school. Who is a philologist? A person who studies the history of languages. J.R.R. was also known as he was very famous for his works, that is The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. The Surprise Party, this is basically an introduction to the main lesson. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit, and his name was Bilbo Baggins. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, nor yet a dry, bare sand hole. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. So here they speak about a hobbit whose name was Bilbo Baggins. Hobbit is an imaginary race which is similar to humans, and they are basically small in size and they have hairy feet. And where did he stay? He stayed in a hole in the ground. It was not a nasty, it was not unpleasant, dirty or a wet hole, nor it was a dry, bare sand hole. But it was a hobbit hole which gave Bilbo Baggins a lot of comfort. Hobbits are little people smaller than dwarfs. They wear no shoes because their feet grow natural leathery soles and thick brown hair. They never had any adventures, nor did anything unexpected. Okay, so hobbits, they're smaller than the dwarves. They wear no shoes. Why? Because their feet grow natural leathery soles and thick brown hair, so there is no need for them to wear shoes. They never had any adventures or did anything unexpected. Very simple people. Good morning. What do you mean? Do you wish me a good morning, or do you feel good this morning? So we have Bilbo Baggins. There's one more person whose name is so far not introduced. So we can see Bilbo Baggins, he is wishing the other person good morning, to which the other person says, what do you mean? Do you wish me good morning? Or do you feel good today morning? The person says, let us see what he replies. All of it, sir. Please sit down. So he says, both. I am wishing you good morning and I also feel good this morning. Very good, but I have no time to sit. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure, and it's very difficult to find any one. So when Bilbo Baggins, he tells the other person, have a seat, the other person says, no, I have no time to sit. I'm looking out for a person. I want to share an adventure with that person. But I'm finding it very difficult to find any one. We are plain quiet folk and have no use for adventures. We don't want any adventures here. Thank you. So Bilbo Baggins, he says, we are very plain, very simple people. Plain, quite focused. We are very simple people, and we have no use for adventures. We are not much into adventures, and we also don't want any adventures over there. And he says, thank you. To which the other person says, what a way of getting rid of me. He's saying, are you trying to get rid of me? Okay, you want me to go away? Not at all. I don't think I know your name. So he says, no, not at all. I don't even know your name. I don't remember your name. To which the other person says, I am Gandalf. And Gandalf means me. So here the other character is introduced. He says, I am Gandalf. And Gandalf means me. Gandalf, not the wandering wizard who used to tell such wonderful tales at parties about dragons and the goblins and giants. Are you the one responsible for many lads and lasses going off into the blue for adventure? So he says, Gandalf, he just recollects. Are you the wandering wizard who used to tell wonderful stories at the parties? And stories about what? About the dragons, about the goblins and the giants. Now, who is a wizard student? Basically, wizard is a man who has magical powers. Goblins, a small, ugly creature that is harmful to human beings. And then he also adds, are you the one responsible for many lads and lasses going off into the blue for adventures? Lads and lasses is basically young boys and girls. Are you the one responsible, for sending them off into the blue? Vanishing them into the blue for adventures? This is what he questions. I am pleased to find you remember something about me. He says, I'm happy that you remember something about me. I thought I would send you on this adventure. So he says, I plan to send you on this adventures. Anyways, I'm not finding anyone. So I'm going to send you on this adventure. Sorry, I don't want any adventures. Thank you. But please come to tea. Why not tomorrow? Come tomorrow. Goodbye. So he says, sorry, I don't want any adventures. Thank you so much. And then he invites him, he tells him, you come home for a cup of tea. You can come over. Why don't you come tomorrow? Okay, and then he says, come tomorrow. And he bids him goodbye. Bilbo Baggins quickly bids Gandalf goodbye. So he says goodbye and he leaves from there. And then, what does he think? What on earth did I ask him to tea for? He was trying to escape. He was trying to avoid that person. And why did he ask him for tea? Why did he ask him to come over the next day for tea? Gandalf puts a strange mark outside Bilbo Baggins' door with his staff. And Gandalf, before leaving, what does he do? He puts a strange mark outside Bilbo Baggins' door with his staff. So what is a staff? Can you see this wooden stick in his hand? This is a staff. So before he leaves that place, he puts a mark on Bilbo Baggins' door with his staff. When tea time came the next day, Bilbo had almost forgotten about Gandalf. So he invited, but then the next day he forgot. Good gracious me, Gandalf. Clear? So now let's begin with the lesson. Just before tea time, there came a loud ring on the front door bell. Bilbo ran to the door. So, just before the tea time, okay, what happened? There was a loud ring on the door. There was, somebody rang the bell. I'm so sorry to keep you waiting, he was going to say when he saw that it was not Gandalf at the door. It was a dwarf with a blue beard tucked into a golden belt. As soon as the door was opened, he pushed himself inside, just as if he had been expected. Now, this person, he had forgotten, but then when the doorbell rang, he recollected. And then he said, he was about to say that I am sorry to keep you waiting. But when he opens the door, he does not see Gandalf, but he sees a dwarf. Who is a dwarf? Dwarf is a person of unusually small stature, a very short-heighted, a person with a very short height is a dwarf. So, how did the dwarf look? He had his blue beard tucked in his in his golden belt. As soon as the door opened, as soon as Bilbo, he opened the door, he pushed himself inside. Who is this? It was the dwarf who pushed himself inside as if Bilbo was expecting him. Clear? Duly, at your service, he said with a low bow. So the dwarf's name is Duly. Okay, and he says, I am at your service, and he bows down. Bilbo Baggins, at yours. So he replies saying that I am at your service. He said, surprised. Yes, he was not expecting the dwarf, so he was surprised. When the silence that followed had become uncomfortable, he added, I am just about to have tea. Do come in and have some with me. So they both were silent for some time, but later on, Bilbo Baggins, he could sense, that there was a long silence, and that's the reason he said, okay, I'm about to have tea. Come inside and have a cup of tea with me. What would you do if an uninvited dwarf came to visit without a word of explanation? So the author is saying, what can you do if there's an uninvited person at your place? You can't ask the person to leave, correct? So he says, what to do if you have an uninvited dwarf who comes to visit you without a word of explanation. They had not been at the table long when there came an even louder ring at the bell. So they just sat with their cup of tea, and it was not very long that again they heard a doorbell. There was a louder ring at the bell. Excuse me, said the hobbit. It's Gandalf for certain this time. So they were having tea, so he excused himself. Okay, and then he just thought, it's Gandalf for sure this time. He thought as he puffed along the passage, but it was not. So while he was going to open the door, on his way he thought, okay, it must be Gandalf this time. And he puffed as to exhale forcibly. But when he opened the door, what did he see? It was not Gandalf. It was two more dwarfs, both with blue hoods and yellow beards. So whom did he see? Basically, he saw two more dwarfs, both with blue hoods and yellow beards. What can I do for you? Said Bilbo. He asked them, okay, how can I help you? And what did they reply? Let us see. Killy, at your service, said one, and Philly added another. They both swept off their blue hoods and bowed. So now, when he opened the door, he asked, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And they said, Killy, at your service. And the other one said, Philly. So their names were Killy and Philly. They removed their blue hoods. Okay, and they bowed down. Students, I hope the lesson is clear till here. Moving ahead. At yours and your family's, replied Bilbo, remembering his manners this time. So, what happened is when they said that we are here at your service, he also says that I am also at your service, at your and your family's service. And he thought of his manners. Let us join the throng, said Killy. Now, who was inside the house before these two dwarfs came? It was only Dwalin and it was Bilbo Baggins. Only two of them in the house. And what did Killy say? Let us join the throng. Throng is what? It's a large crowd or a group of people. So Baggins is surprised. What does he say? He says, throng, thought Mr. Baggins. I don't like the sound of that. He said throng, and he's wondering, and he says that, I don't like the sound of that. He sat in the corner trying to collect his wits while the dwarves sat round the table and talked about mines and golds and troubles with the goblins and the threat of dragons and lots of other things which he did not understand and did not want to, for they sounded much too adventurous. So what happened? Dwalin was already there inside the room. Okay. Then came Killy and Philly. He took them in and now he sat in one corner and he was trying to collect his wits. He was trying to, he was just thinking. Okay. What happened and what did he see? He saw the dwarves. They sat around the table and they talked about the mines. They spoke about gold. They spoke about goblins and the threat of dragons. He did not understand what they were speaking and he did not even wish to understand what exactly they were trying to say. Why? Because they sounded adventurous. And he said initially itself that we are simple people. We are not into adventure. So he didn't take any interest in listening to what they were saying. And when this was happening, let us see what happened. Then, ding dong a ling dang, his bell rang again. Someone at the door, he said, blinking. Some 4, I should say by the sound, said Philly. Besides, we saw them coming along behind us in the distance. So, when the dwarfs were talking to each other and when Bilbo was just looking at them, there was a doorbell again. Somebody rang the bell again. And then he said, oh, somebody at the door. And then what did Philly say? By the sound I feel there are some 4 people waiting outside. And then he also adds that while they were coming to Bilbo's house, behind them at a short distance, he saw 4 more people walking towards Bilbo's house. The poor little hobbit sat down in the hall and put his head in his hands and wondered what had happened and what was going to happen and whether they would all stay to supper. Then the bell rang again louder than ever and he had to run to the door. It was not 4 after all, it was 5. Dory, Nori, Ori, Oin, and Gloin were their names, and off they marched in to join the others. So, this poor little hobbit, what did he do? He put his head in his hands. He was sitting like this, okay, and wondered what had happened. After he heard there are four more people waiting outside, four more dwarfs waiting outside, and then he was wondering whether they all are going to stay for supper. What's a supper? An evening meal is called as supper. And he didn't open the door till then. And again the doorbell rang, and this time it was louder. Okay, and when he opened the door, what did he see? He saw not four, he saw five doves. And they also marched in. Marched in means they also walked inside to join the other doves. Already it had almost become a throng. Some called for drinks, and one called for coffee, and all of them for cake. So now it was a throng. Initially it wasn't, when it was only Dwalin and Bilbo. But now there were so many. It was Bilbo, Dwalin, Killy, Philly, and the other five who joined in. So there were 9 of them at present. And yes, this is a throng. So, what did they call for? Some called for means they asked for drinks. One of them asked for coffee, and all of them asked for cakes. Here I have the image that is there in the textbook. The dwarfs were starting on round of buttered scones when there came a loud knock. Bilbo rushed along the passage, very angry and puzzled. He pulled open the door with a jerk, and more dwarfs. The last of these was Thorin, an enormously important and proud dwarf. And there was Gandalf behind, leaning on his staff and laughing. So these dwarfs, they were starting on a round. They were about to start with the buttered scones. What are buttered scones? Basically, a small round cake eaten with butter or jam. They were about to begin with it when again there came a loud knock. And Bilbo rushed along the passage, and he was very angry. Now, who is this time? And he was puzzled. He was thinking, who is there at this point of time? He pulled open the door with a jerk. And what did he see? He saw more dwarfs. The last of these was Thorin, and this one happens to be an important and a proud dwarf. But yes, there was somebody else. Who was that? It was Gandalf, and he was leaning on his staff, on his wooden stick, and he was laughing. Now, whether Bilbo takes Gandalf and Thorin inside or he doesn't do that, that we will see in our next class. You have to read the lesson. Also, there is another link with this video link which you have to click on. Select the correct answers and don't forget to submit it back to us. Till then, students, you will take care of yourself. Sai Ram and bye-bye.